Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're about to take a deep dive into one of the biggest true crime cases in the universe. Or, at least, on our part of the planet. From the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
Okay, so this time, we're really diving into some serious stuff with these allegations against Diddy. We got a whole bunch of sources here, like news articles, legal stuff, even an interview with someone who used to work with him. There's a lot to unpack, but we're going to be looking at what was going on at those crazy parties he's known for, the charges against him, and how this whole thing could affect his whole career.
Yeah, this is a big one, and we definitely need to remember that Diddy's presumed innocent until proven guilty, right? But even the accusations themselves bring up some really important questions. We're talking about power, who's accountable when things go wrong, and that dark side that seems to follow the music industry around.
No, for sure. So let's get into that insider perspective first. This interview with LaJoyce Brookshire, she was the publicity director at Bad Boy Records. And, well, let's just say she doesn't sugarcoat anything about what was going on at these parties.
Yeah, and what makes her account really stand out is that she was in Diddy's inner circle, right? This wasn't some outsider looking in. She was right there in the thick of it.
Yeah, and she's pretty straightforward about it. One quote that really stuck with me, she said, "My spidey senses were always on high alert. And I know that there's no safety after a certain hour." I mean, that's kind of chilling, right?
Definitely. I mean, even if she didn't see anything illegal herself, she's talking about this feeling of danger. Like something could happen at any moment.
Exactly. She talks about all the drugs, people hooking up and disappearing, just this feeling that anything goes after a certain point in the night.
It makes you wonder, about the power dynamics at play. If even someone close to Diddy felt uncomfortable, what did that mean for other people there? Was this like an open secret, something people just accepted as the price of being in Diddy's world?
It's kind of like, what lengths would people go to just to be part of that scene, And if that's true, I mean, that's pretty messed up. Brookshire really makes it seem like there was a deliberate blurring of the lines between what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah, and that raises a big question for me. How much of this was intentional on Diddy's part? Was it a power play? Or did he just create something that spiraled out of control?
Yeah, it's tough because we don't want to jump to conclusions, but this one quote from Brookshire really gives you pause. She said, "There's a palpable shift as the night wore on, almost like a switch flipped and the rules no longer applied."
And it's that shift, that feeling that anything goes, that's where things get really unsettling. It makes you think maybe this wasn't just about partying. Maybe it was about power, about control, and about the potential for people to be taken advantage of.
And that is where this whole thing stops being about celebrity gossip and becomes something much more serious.
Exactly. And we need to understand the potential consequences here because these accusations against Diddy, they're not to be taken lightly.
Okay, but this case isn't just about those parties, is it? We've got to talk about, the whole baby oil thing at his place in Miami.
Right, the baby oil, 1,000 bottles. I mean, that's a bit much, even for Diddy. And look, it's not like it's a crime to have baby oil, but given everything else, it just raises some eyebrows,
And his lawyer saying it was from Costco. Come on, that's just embarrassing.
Yeah, that didn't go over so well, did it? Whether it was a mistake or just trying to deflect, it totally backfired when Costco came out and said they don't even sell baby oil.
Seriously, it sounds like something you'd see on a sitcom. But it does make you think about the legal strategy here, doesn't it? I mean, what are they trying to achieve with a defense like that?
Totally. When you're dealing with accusations as serious as these, it all comes down to credibility. And this whole baby oil thing, how it was handled, it could really affect how a jury sees their whole defense.
So let's get into the actual charges, because we're talking about some serious stuff here. Sex trafficking, racketeering, transporting people for prostitution. Those are some heavy accusations, each with their own, legal meanings and potential consequences.
Exactly. These terms get thrown around a lot, but we got to be clear about what they actually mean in a legal context. When we talk about sex trafficking, we're talking about exploiting someone for sex, often using force or manipulation. And racketeering, That's a whole other beast. It basically means being part of an organization involved in criminal activity, which in this case could be Diddy and his whole bad boy enterprise.
And what about these freak-offs everyone's talking about? How do those fit into all of this?
So the indictment suggests that these freak-offs weren't just wild parties. The allegations say these were organized events that could be linked to sex trafficking and prostitution. We need to be careful about going into specifics since it's still under investigation, but if these allegations are true, they could really bolster the prosecution's case.
So what you're saying is these parties, the whole vibe Brookshire described, maybe it was more calculated than it seemed at first.
It's definitely something the prosecution will try to prove. They're building a case that goes beyond isolated incidents, right? They're trying to show a pattern of behavior, maybe even a whole system set up to take advantage of people. And this is where things get even more complicated because there's another piece of this puzzle we need to talk about.
But we can't ignore this other part of the story, the stuff with Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura. She came out last year with those abuse allegations against him.
Right, and they did settle that whole thing out of court, but it definitely adds another layer to what's going on now. The prosecution could try to use her case to show a pattern of behavior, especially if there are similarities between what she went through and what these new alleged victims are saying.
So we have the parties, these allegations of a system to exploit people, and now this connection to past accusations. It all paints a pretty different picture of Diddy, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and it's what makes this case so fascinating, but also really sensitive. These are serious accusations, the kind that could put him away for life, and it's happening against the backdrop of his carefully constructed image.
Yeah, you have to wonder if that whole persona he's cultivated, the philanthropist, the successful businessman, the dedicated father, if maybe that was part of the problem all along. Did it make it easier for people to just ignore any rumors about what might have been going on?
It's a good question. Did Diddy's fame and power create this environment where people were afraid to speak out? The legal system may not answer that directly, but it's crucial to understanding the bigger picture here.
So playing this out, if he is found guilty on all these charges, what are we talking about here? What's the worst case scenario?
We're talking about a life sentence, no exaggeration. Those charges, especially sex trafficking and racketeering, they carry serious weight.
It's a lot to absorb, honestly, going from these party stories to accusations of using a system to exploit people. It's heavy stuff.
It really highlights that behind the money and the fame, there are real people whose lives are impacted by this. This is far from over, but whatever happens in court, it's already made people think about power, accountability, and what comes with having that level of influence.
We came into this wanting to understand what's going on with these allegations against Diddy, but I think what we found is something much bigger. It's about the dark side of the music industry, how power can be abused, and how important it is for people to speak up. So, what do you think? Where do you stand on all of this? Keep asking the tough questions, and don't be afraid to dig deeper.
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface,
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
where hidden killers roam unnoticed in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic, very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Bruschi as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point on narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.